All right, we are back again, and today we're going to be talking about speed paint, something very near and dear to my heart. So, for those of you who are new to the miniature painting hobby, there's a type of paint called speed paint or contrast paint, depends on who you buy it from. Speed paint is Army Painter, contrast paint is Citadel, that's Games Workshop and their paint brand. So the pitch with these paints, at least when they were released, is that they're like a one and done type solution. It's a high contrast, semi-transparent paint. It's very fluid, and when you apply it over a miniature that has been primed white, the paint will flow into the recesses, it darkens them, it tints the surfaces, so it gives you highlights, and it gives you shadows, all in a single coat. Now, for anybody that has been watching the show or knows me, you know that I am a huge fan of the Army Painter speed paints. However, I'm not a fan of the one and done solution, the way they advertise them, and I'm just not a fan of using speed paint in that way. This is ultimately just opinion, preference, but I don't think using them in that suggested manner looks the best. I think it's totally fine and acceptable if the goal is just to get like a colored in mini on the table, but beyond that, I think it doesn't look the best. It's a little lacking. And yeah, I don't know. I think what I dislike most though is that advertising them as a one and done solution, it sort of taints the image to some degree. And here's what I mean. Like it limits people's view and understanding of the product and what the product can do and what it can be used for, what it is for. Now, at this point, there's been lots of people that have explored and utilized and engaged these paints as the tool that they are, and rather than that one and done solution, And what really evoked me to want to, other than the fact that I think about my use of speed paint and how I'm using paint in general, other than those things, one thing that made me really want to go through this video was one of Maniac's videos, Scott the Miniature Maniac. He was doing like a collaboration with Jay from Eon's Battle, and they were painting up some of Scott's dark Eldar. And there was an instance where, and they're doing it in their respective styles and ways of painting. And there was an instance where Jay was suggesting to use a black speed paint, Grim Black, and Scott's retort to using that paint was like, well, when it dries looking kind of gray. And then Jay's retort was, do another coat. Like, this isn't necessarily like a knock or anything to Scott, because he's a phenomenal painter, but it was interesting in that moment to see and hear somebody who does paint talk about speed paint and allude to a shortcoming that's not actually a shortcoming. Like it's still paint, it still has the same qualities of paint. And though it's advertised as this one and done thing, it's still paint. And yeah, so that made me think immediately about like the limiting nature of advertising a product as one and done coat of paint. Not only does it suggest a certain use, but that suggestion also immediately guides the focus and understanding of the consumer to only use it in the way that it's advertised. Which I get that, the one and done solution is, it's a good deal. It's a spicy deal. It's very alluring, attractive. It's a great way to advertise, to sell things. Once again, I think it's limiting the product, and even more so, it limits the imagination of the consumer, because you're not trying to say consumers are stupid, but sometimes if we're told a thing does a thing, if speed paint is a one and done solution, then I apply the coat and it's supposed to be done, but it doesn't look like I want it to look, so it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, so it's not a one and done. So I'm not going to use speed paint because it's not one and done. But if you don't view it as a one and done, and you view it as a tool that does a thing or does many things, now we're in action. I think speed paint is one of the most versatile tools in our current miniature painting toolbox that we can use and just flex all over the minis. It's a glorious tool. There's a lot of uses beyond that suggested one coat and done use. There's an immediate upgrade from the white prime to immediately using those paints is doing the slap chop. And what slap chop is, if you're not familiar with it, it's starting with a black primed miniature, and then you either do a zenithal highlight, which can be done with a rattle can or an airbrush. What I always do, this is the slap part, I guess, is you dry brush your highlights on, and then you apply the speed paint over that. So these speed paints can be used for slap chop. They can be used to glaze. Glazing is like doing like a thin layer to tint like certain areas to have like a nice transition. And yeah, it can be really nice for like distressed areas. I'll show some examples of that as I'm talking about this. It can be used for blending. It can be used for different weathering effects. It can be used to tint things. It can be used as a wash. One of my favorite things, as an undercoat. Yeah, that's right. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. And lastly, it can be used like as a filter. You know, like there's so many uses. I've listed off a bunch of things here. Some of them kind of blend together as to what they are, but it's just so many uses. So if you have any doubts about speed paint, or it doesn't seem like that product for you based on the advertisement of the one and done solution, you've seen that one and done and it's just not for you, I'm saying give it another shot. Use it in a different way. So my top 5 uses, number 1, I said I would mention this again, using it as a dynamic and rich undercoat. So doing that slap chop method of dark black primed mini to a highlighted either via zenithal or dry brushing. And then you put your base color over it. This gives you, opposed to like an acrylic base coat, which is like generally like a flat color, you're gonna have color playing with a lot of light and shadow, which for me, when it comes to art, light and shadow is important. It's drama, it creates dynamism, it creates movement. It's good. I like it. It's good for my preferences, for my likes. So creates a really dynamic base coat. One of my favorite things to use it for currently. 2, another one of my favorite uses for it is using it to create gold. Now, I have a gold acrylic paint that I have had for a long time. It's by Vallejo. It's a fine gold, but my issue with it is that you shake it, you mix it, you put it out, and it's all mixed and everything, but it separates really quickly. Like the chemical, whatever qualities and elements that go to make that paint that color, they separate really quickly. It's frustrating, it's annoying. So what I do now is I use one of Army Painter's metallic line paints. I use their gunmetal, which is kind of like a dingier looking silver. I use that, and then I use yellow or varying shades of brown speed paint to tint, to shade, to wash, all kinds of uses. It's crazy. A really good example of this, I'll put an image. I did a commission of Angron recently, and for his armor, it's sort of gold, it's sort of brass, it's sort of tarnished looking, and to get that effect, I did the gunmetal, like I said, and then I did yellow zealot over it, but not just like a fat coat of it. I did like a thin coat. So like we're just glazing it over, just like a thin coating, because I still wanted the silver to come through, but I wanted it to be tinted gold to look dingy, and it worked out perfectly. Another thing I really like to do is like wet blend. And it's really nice, especially like on organic stuff. I use this a lot on like on my Tyranids, on my my one-page rules. This was way before my channel. My one-page rule, Plague Demons. And I use this a lot on my Death Guard as well, the 40K especially. But wet blending, you get some nice transitions. These paints flow together really well. They have a nice working time, so like you can lay them down, get a little water on your brush, clean it up a little bit. It's good stuff. It's really good. Next thing I really like them for is like for like weathering, especially like kind of like staining, like with the browns and stuff like that, and staining in like the pauldron of a Space Marine, like in the cracks. Maybe if you're like Death Guard, for example, on like all the little rivets and stuff, doing a little dot of brown, and then you can come in with the water, and you're like, just so you don't have like a gnarly looking like watermark type stain, you can kind of feather that out and clean it up, but still have like a nice like rusty looking funky, dirty rivet, you know, so it's great for weathering and tending stuff. My final favorite use is using them as a wash. A good example of this is one of my recent projects, my Stormcast Eternals. I like to use this, it's like a dark blue, but I like to thin it down a fair bit. And when I say thin it down, I just honestly like a little bit on my brush, just minimal paint, and like spreading that out and not really globbing it on, but like I said, spreading it out into the more recessed areas. It makes an excellent shade for a silver. But yeah, those are my favorite options. There are tons of options. This video is not to give you an extensive list of all the uses of Speedpaint, but just to encourage you to use Speedpaint for the many things that it can do and it is capable of, opposed to maybe rejecting it from a review that you saw that said, it's like, yeah, it is a one and done product, but yeah, not quite. It doesn't look that great. You know, like, I don't know. It's a tool, and you know, you need multiple tools generally to do a job. So, but yeah, there is a ton of options for Speedpaint. So Speedpaint rant over. Definitely use it. If you were dissuaded from using it, I don't know, think again, give it another shot. If you want to see some people that use Speedpaint really well, I've mentioned him already, Jay from Eons of Battle. He's been a big inspiration as to how I paint. And I like his, not only his mentality, but like his style of painting, not because he sticks to a style, but because he is constantly experimenting. He is always trying new things. And I think that's the way to engage the hobby. It's not always the way I engage it, but you know, ideally, I guess, I think that's the way to engage a hobby or any sort of craft. Like, it should be an exploration. It should be always learning. It shouldn't just be like, oh, I figured it out and that's that. You know, so Jay from Eons of Battle, thank you for all your videos, and viewer, go check him out. He'll show you the speed painting ways. He's got lots of stuff going on over there. But as for my hobby, it has been a little on the sparse side lately, but I am knocking out some cool stuff and playing around with some really cool, fun stuff. Now I'm going to be covering these both in their own like respective videos, but something I've been thinking about a lot lately is like different terrain and different terrain styles that are available, with, you know, whether it's MDF or printed, like 3D printed, or even like handmade type stuff, you know, and even ideas behind like building your collection of terrain. And so the philosophy of your terrain collection, kind of weird, but interesting. So I'm gonna be making a video about that soon. And what kind of prompted that is I've been building a lot of these MDF terrain pieces for a friend of mine for bolt action, and I'm very impressed with them. So I want to talk about that further. Another future video going to be coming up. Now, I saw Mr. Peachy Tips. A while back, he did a video on doing like cloaks and stuff, like materials out of masking tape for your miniatures, you know. And at the time, and also now, I'm obsessed. I love the Desert Raider vibe, you know. I love the Talarn Desert Raiders. I love, you know, like in Dune, I love the Fremen, you know. I love in Necromunda the Ash Waste Nomads. In Star Wars, I like the Sand People. I love these desert nomad people. So when I saw Peach's video doing this masking tape thing for like different like materials, I thought to myself, like, that's gonna be my desert space marine faction. And what finally pushed me over the edge was I was listening to a podcast. There's these three British fellas. They do have a podcast called Laying Down the Lore. One knows a ton about Warhammer, one knows a good fair bit, and the other one knows jack shit. And they all talk together on Warhammer, and it's great. One of the recent episodes was talking about like Astartes recruitment, and they were talking about how they used the Ash Waste Nomads as an example of a crop that would be good for harvesting some Astartes recruits, because like they're such a hardy and gnarly people. And I was like, yes, that like a space marine faction that has like a dust nomad aesthetic and culture and vibe? Yes, absolutely. So that's where I'm bringing it together. I have my Leviathan Space Marines from the Leviathan 10th edition launch box, and then I'm using the masking tape method to create like hoods and probably do like different like wrappings and like turban type things and capes and stuff. I want to make them look like some gnarly like desert clad Space Marines. And then when I mentioned this to my group, my hobby group, friend, patron of the show, Mr. Captain Fox, he was like, the Dust Raiders. I was like, fuck yeah. So that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna be showing off some specific shapes on how you can do these, this masking tape for your, specifically for Space Marines, and how you can make some really cool garb for them without using like tedious things. Well, actually tedious, expensive, a little fiddly, more challenging to use things like green stuff. You know, I do love green stuff. It's phenomenal, and I don't think this replaces it, but this is surprisingly easy to do. And I have a few little things that I'm gonna share in a video. So there's that. That is one that is gonna be coming. But yeah, I mean, that has really been it for me this week. Just been thinking about different little minutia of the hobby, you know, that I don't know if anybody cares about or thinks about, but I think about Speedpaint all the time. I think it's a product that, I think it's a popular product, you know, but it's also a product that I saw a lot of people like kind of poo-poo on, and I'm here to tell you that it's pretty great. I wanted to share my love for it and hopefully encourage you to engage it as well. It's a wonderful product that'll get you a long ways. And a lot of army painters shit for that matter. I've been very impressed, even with their acrylics. One thing with their paint is that it holds up well. Like, it doesn't separate. You know, obviously you shake paint to make sure all the pigments and all the materials and all that, it's all together. And then you put it out on your palette. A lot of times with some acrylic paints, they fall apart, you know, over time, over hours or days or whatever. But Army Painter seems to hold up, and I'm very fucking grateful for that. It makes the hobby experience a lot better, and I can't recommend it enough. So yeah. Cheers, Army Painter. You've created a phenomenal product. And if you want to sponsor my channel, that'd be great. I will absolutely shill your product. But hey, I think that's gonna be it for me for now. Let me know what you think about Army Painter paints, and specifically speed paints, contrast paint. How do you like to use the product? Do you really engage the one and done? Are you cool with that? If so, that's fucking rad. I'm happy for you, you know? And maybe you have speed paints and were let down by it, and maybe you just didn't think to use it outside of that suggested one and done use, and thus it was a useless product to you. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments. If this video was helpful to you, maybe a little insightful, maybe you made you think twice about your speed paints, be sure to give a like down in the comments, all right? And if you want to see more like this, be sure to subscribe. I put out a video about every other week. I try to provide some kind of fun hobby nectar and a little existential something, you know, that ties us into the reality that we are people in this world trying to exist, and, you know, engaging in these fun, goofy little hobbies to stay sane. Or at least that's why I do it. And for the social and creative outlet. Yeah. Anyway, but hey, that's gonna be it for me for now. If you dug the video, give it a like. You got something to say, comment. You wanna see more of this stuff, be sure to subscribe. But as always, I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace. Today is September 1. 2025. Here are 7 dice. Today's numbers are on the D20, 4. On the D12, 5. On the D10, 4. On the percentage die, 40. On the D8, 2. On the D6, 6. And on the D4, 4. Those are today's numbers. Recording this never gets easier. It's frustrating. I wish it did. But hey, that's what it is, right? I don't know. Use Speedpaint. Use Speedpaint. I get a PP.